Hey everyone, welcome back and thanks for listening to the Rescue One podcast. This episode is really informative and I think really useful. It's with Annette Zapp, who is a lieutenant retired from the Lisle-Woodbridge Fire Department in the Chicago suburb of Illinois. She has a master's in biochemistry and molecular biology from the University of South Dakota School of Medicine. She was super into research, got into strength and conditioning coaching. She did that for like 10 years. You know, she got into the fire service and then became a certified strength and conditioning coach. She's done tactical strength and conditioning stuff for firefighters and athletes for a long time, and it made her really qualified to be a part of this review that just got published. So very recently, a review got published about creatine and how it benefits tactical athletes and firefighters included. So we go deep into it, and she breaks it down really easy to understand. So I hope you guys enjoy. Finally, I feel like it's a long time coming. You and I have a lot of very, very similar interests in health and wellness, and I love what you're doing. But could you tell us a little bit about how you got started? Because I know originally you weren't in the fire service. You have a research background, right?
I was not in the fire service. At one point in my life, someone told me I needed to have an elevator speech, and so here it is. I am a biochemist by degree. I am a strength and conditioning coach and a nutritionist by credential. I'm a firefighter by trade, parentheses, retired. And then I'm a business owner by choice because I found, Glennon Doyle says, you find what breaks your heart, and that's your purpose. And what breaks my heart is we take fully whole men and women into the fire service. They raise their right hands and they say, I promise to protect, lives and property, even at the expense of my own life. They make that vow to their communities, to their municipalities, to their departments. And in most cases, there's no one on the other side of that oath saying, and we're going to take care of you too. And so I started Fire Rescue Wellness as something to educate fire departments and consult with fire departments. And during that process, I found out something really interesting. And it is this: in the last 15 years, especially in the last 10 years, research into fire has exploded. But the problem is the people that are reading the research are not the end users. They are other researchers. And so I realized that there's this huge chasm between research-based best practices and what the fire service is hearing. And so just as part of my business, I started to try to bridge that gap with my research reviews, with 7-Minute Science, with all of those things. But when my career ended, I realized I could really fill this space, and I would certainly be a lot more credible if I had a PhD instead of just a master's. So in August, I moved in June, and in August, I started a PhD at Oklahoma State University with the Dr. J. Dawes. So really excited about all of that. And thanks for having me, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't realize you were starting that PhD. That's really cool because by, you were talking about by trade and by choice. I love that. Your degree is in biology, and you have molecular biology. No?
Biochemistry, even worse. Biochemistry and molecular biology. So logical, right?
Oh my God.
Let's go into the fire service.
Well,
but the thing is, it fits beautiful.
Right. I was going to say it works out so well, and it's like, who knew, right? I mean, it's kind of wild. And like the research side of it's always super interesting to me because I've really become interested in research for CBD in particular to try and understand it before I started this company. And trying to read that stuff is like reading another language. It's its own language. And I'm like trying to Google these terms. I don't understand them. And talking to people about it that are much smarter than me. But it seems like this is an entire lifetime of work, like what people do just in research. And you were involved in a recent study, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, but I'm super excited about. Congrats, by the way. And, what I'm just on my own personal curiosity, what was some of the coolest stuff that you were able to research, or things that you really got into that you liked doing? It seemed like you were doing that a little bit before. So kind of, I don't know, was there something that you were really excited about, or did it all kind of just not push you in the right direction?
Well, I've sort of become, first of all, did you just hear that big noise? That's my
Yes.
roommate, Dummy. Dummy is a robot vacuum. I sent him home 15 minutes ago and
That's all
he
right.
just figured it out.
That's all right.
I have
My
the
roommates
worst
are
roommate.
my fiance is really quiet, but the huskies are very loud, so
Oh,
you might hear
yeah,
them, but
the
that's
Huskies.
okay.
So I more than anything by accident became an author on a lot of these studies because this might shock you, it might not. Researchers really don't understand the fire service. So they'll come up with these research questions and they think they have a great study designed, and it doesn't even make sense. So someone recently said to me, like, hey, we want to do this study where we put force plates underneath where the firefighters are exiting the truck. And so then we're going to measure how much force when they jump off the truck. And I was like, time out. Like already the study design is flawed because we don't jump off the truck. We repel by holding on to the handrail as much as we can because it's painful to jump off the truck. And so I seemed at that time to be the only active duty firefighter that also understood research design. And so I got involved in several studies. Dr. Andrew Jagum had an air consumption course study, and I was more or less just the consultant after the fact to make sure that the writing process made sense. The creatine study that we're going to talk about is actually a review. So all of us worked on little pieces of that together. Why can't I have another study that I published and I can't remember what it is right now? That's so embarrassing. But the long answer to all of that is I've worked more in a consulting capacity with all of these studies in the design and all of that stuff rather than in the data collection. Because the most important thing I think about a study is making sure that your study design makes sense. And so jumping off a truck onto force plates just didn't make sense because it wasn't going to tell them anything that would be translatable to what we do. And I think that, so in addition to study design, being able to translate that information to the fire service so they go, oh, yes, now I understand what I should do. I think that that's a huge part of it as well. So the really short answer to your question is I have a lot of great friends that ask me to do cool stuff.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think it's one of those things that's probably going to be even more appreciated over time. You know,
Yeah.
we have no idea. We had no idea. Even so, I went to Fire Academy in oh seven, oh
Okay.
six. Sorry, oh six, and I was like, they did not talk about sleep or cancer or mental health or any of that stuff. And
Right?
you know how quickly did that turn? And now we look at it and we're like, of course, right? This makes so much sense. There is no understanding until you understand it with hindsight, and it's like the 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 barriers that get broken by doing the groundwork is super important. So I think it's really awesome. Now, as far as like this this side of the fire service with like what you did recently, and I saw that Dr. Brager was on there. I'm a fan of hers. I've been like following her on social media. Actually, next week she'll be in Ohio presenting. I'm going there. I'm going to see her speak
Oh, the
at
Bucky
Beaver
Beaver
Creek.
thing or whatever it's
Yeah,
called. Yeah.
yeah, Bucky Beaver thing exactly. The
She's great.
I've never seen her speak. I obviously love the message she's doing. I think she does really really interesting work. I became really interested in sleep as well after having some issues with it, and just like she's really insightful and she speaks to us. So I think that's cool. Um, but as far as like some of the other research that you've done that has been what you find personally fascinating or like your personal curiosity, would you say sleep is kind of the main thing? I know you've talked quite a bit about it.
Yeah. So sleep is incredibly important. And to date, I haven't participated in any um, collection of data or anything on sleep. Now, that's going to change because my friend Drew Gonzalez, PhD, calls me up on the weekly basis and he's like, I've got another crazy idea. That's how 7 Minute Science started.
Cool.
But to date, I haven't done any actual research on sleep. And actually, hopefully this is a good point to interject this. There is this pervasive view, I'll say, especially on social media, where people will make these statements and then someone will come back and have a question and the other person will say, do your research. Well, we have to differentiate between doing research and consuming research. So doing research is the study design, the institutional review board, making sure you're not hurting your subjects, who's going to pay for it, data collection, writing it, peer review process. Like, that's doing research. When we say those terms, do your research, what we mean is look for information. And I always try to tell people where to get it, because we'll talk about creatine later. But if you were to, you never Google when you're looking for research, you never use Google. You would use Google Scholar or PubMed. Those are the gold standards. Google, YouTube, absolutely not. But if you were to Google Scholar creatine, you would probably come up with 10,000 hits. 5,000 of those have been done by Dr. Scott Forbes, undoubtedly. Not that many, but a lot of them. And so that's overwhelming. As the end user, you are so overwhelmed in that moment, you just cherry pick a couple of things and then say, I've done my research. And so I always suggest to people, there's different levels of research. And the first one would be just a case study. And a case study is something that's super interesting, but it's really small. Something that happened in one person. One of the famous case studies that I really like is I think it was a high school athlete. He was in a car accident. It was in the UK, profoundly injured, persistent coma. And they were having the conversation, doctors and parents having the conversation about removing life support. And I don't remember if it was a dietitian or if it was another practitioner. They said, I wonder what would happen if we gave him a really high dose of omega-3. So omega-3 is important in cell membranes, and it's important for the brain. It's important for anti-inflammatory properties in the body. I wonder what would happen. Well, they started giving this patient, I think it was 30 grams of omega-3 per day. And in a few days, he was out of the coma. And a few weeks later, he walked through his high school graduation ceremony. And so super interesting, but that's a case study. That's one person. And so we can't really say we need to give 30 grams of omega-3 to everyone in a coma. More research is needed.
Yeah.
That's Dr. Brittany Hollerbeck's famous term. More research is needed. So there's the case study. And then above that, we get larger scale studies. And then above that, we get what's known as kind of like the gold standard, the double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled. So a study for CBD would be, we have a group that are getting the product. We have a group that are not getting the product. But neither group knows which situation they have. And the researcher doesn't know either. So there's no bias. So above that, so even if you were looking for that kind of study, you would still come up with so many studies. So above that is where I kind of say, this is where the typical firefighter should be looking. And that would be review articles and meta-analyses. And so review articles are simply someone with expertise goes and kind of basically reviews the state of the union, so to speak. And then the meta-analyses are similar. But in terms of, and I forgot what the actual question was because I went on such a tangent, and I will ask you to remind me in a second. The typical firefighter is going to be so overwhelmed, even if they get on PubMed or Google Scholar, that they really need to start looking for these position stance, meta-analyses, or systematic reviews. That's going to be the best place to start with your research. And I would love to answer the actual question, what was it?
I appreciate the honesty so much. I get on
Turn me loose.
Yeah, that's it. I love it. I get on these so much too. So I started I've become good at taking notes of what the question was before it goes down that route, because I need my own direction,
Yes.
I'll run down. So no, I appreciate it. I was asking, so that kind of answered it a little bit. I also wanted to hear about some of the
Sleep.
things that you feel like you were directed at. Like, is there research that you just love? And I believe I've heard you speak about sleep a good amount. I know you talk about a lot of different stuff, but sleep in particular.
That was my long-winded answer to, I haven't done any direct research on sleep. Drew is working on a study, but sleep is incredibly important for all humans. It's incredibly important in terms of your mortality risk is higher when you're not getting sufficient sleep. And that's in the general population. That's Charlie, the accountant, Sophia, the waitress. Inadequate sleep is lethal. And that's a quote from our friend, Dr. Allison Brager. Sleep deprivation is lethal. So we look at these populations who are chronically sleep deprived, police, fire, military, also shift workers in general. If you're a shift worker, you are unlikely to be getting adequate restorative sleep due to the fact that your circadian rhythm is hosed up. So we look at that. We also then look at the things that are taking the lives of our firefighters. And those things are suicide, cardiovascular disease, and accidents primarily. And when you look at those three things, an independent risk factor for all of those is sleep deprivation. So just keep piling it on. In 2007, I want to say it was, the World Health Organization declared shift work, I believe it was a type 2A carcinogen. It's not up here. It's not in the hard drive. And then they said, so type 2A is, that probably causes cancer in humans. And then at the same time, they said firefighting is a type 2B carcinogen, meaning, we don't really know. It could maybe cause cancer in humans. But in 2022, they changed their stance and they upgraded the career of firefighting to a group 1 carcinogen. Absolutely, positively causes cancer in humans. So now we have these two things, the career and the fact that we're doing shift work. That to me sends a really clear message. We need to do as much as we possibly can to get restorative sleep, both on and off duty, for our health and for our occupational performance and. But just like highest wave top, our health depends on getting adequate sleep. And there's no way to quote unquote biohack it. There's no way to get adequate sleep in 3 hours. You just can't. The typical adult needs 7 to 9 hours. We got to figure it out.
Yeah, the constant deprivation of it is like what we have to try to solve on the off-duty stuff. I've talked with as many people as I could about this, and there's like just widespread consensus. Obviously, there's the famous books and listening to Dr. Matt Walker, or people that go off on their and I think Andrew Huberman has positives, but he does have some pretty wild stuff on there. So like I like listening to Dr. Matt Walker, but it's like you said, you also have to. You do have to read actual studies. I personally love reading meta analyses because I feel like that's the firefighter version. I'm glad you said that, because I'm like, I don't know what this individual study says, but I like somebody summing it all up for me. That's cool.
I have a video. I'm going to have to repost it. It was a young man. He's just so enthusiastic. He was on my crew and he was really into fitness, but he was just spouting off one day in the kitchen about the advantages of brown rice over white rice.
Okay.
And so I had enough. And I said, because here's the thing, if I can get a firefighter to eat rice instead of French fries, that's a pretty big win. So I finally had enough. And I'm like, where did you get that information? YouTube.
Yeah.
And so I went and I found him quickly on Google Scholar, a study. And I said, I want you to read this. And because here's the thing, there are advantages to white and there are advantages to brown. And it kind of depends upon what you're doing. But for the typical person, I think if you just do some white and some brown. It's pretty darn good. So I gave him the study, like, here you go. And he just started laughing. And I took a video of it. And he's laughing. And I said, why are you laughing? He goes, I am 10 words into this study and I don't know what 5 of them even mean. Yeah. And so I said, what is the lesson here? And he said, YouTube is not a credible source of scientific information. Right. Bingo.
Yeah. I do appreciate that. Yeah. There's I just got to pop up. Hold on one second. Do you have Riverside open in other tabs? No? Might be. I don't know why it's saying that. It's asking me. Nah. Okay. Well, it's fine.
That's weird.
Okay. So, on that note, we talk about research a good amount on. I usually ramble by myself when I'm interviewing other people. We don't talk about CBD, but talk about a lot of research, and double-blind studies are the ones I really try to highlight. Case studies are cool, but I feel like they're kind of the first step, and so I don't really cite those very much. Although they do seem like they're really interesting. It's that whole correlation or causation thing. But
I love that.
Yeah, with your recent study. So I'll wind this up by saying, when I was in high school, my health teacher told me, guys, this is your last day in class. I just want to say before you leave, don't ever take creatine. Okay?
No.
Yes, that's what he said to me.
Because it's a steroid?
No, because he said it's going to ruin your kidneys.
Oh, how interesting.
This is my health teacher. He was like, I power lifted and I took creatine all the time. I have kidney problems, and again, correlation causation. But he was like, I don't want you guys to do what I did, and I'm telling you all, please don't take creatine. Make that promise to me. And we're like everyone in my class was like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Anyway, we're in 9th grade, so nobody's freaking doing creatine and powerlifting in my class in 9th grade. Anyway, so I left, and I was like, I always had it in my head that creatine was this potentially dangerous thing. And my dad has always been in incredible shape. He is very into fitness. Even still, he's 64 and he's like still working out really well. And he always took creatine. And he said, my dad's an electrician, but he said creatine is the most researched supplement that's ever been made. And he's like, it's very, very well known. It's super safe. And this was before Google was a thing. So he's like, that guy's a moron, And it was really interesting. So like at that one point, I'm like, I have my health teacher and I have my dad. What the hell is going on? And that was like I remember that moment thinking, like, there's a lot of shit out there that people just will spout off that they don't kind of know. And it made this really big confusion in my head. But even still today, firefighters around the station, I think, have a big misconception of what creatine is and what it does. And also there's still a good amount of people that think it has negative health benefits or effects and it's unsafe. So my first question would be, like, can we just talk about creatine in general, what it is, how we get it?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to talk about creatine. Okay, here's the first thing I tell everyone. I'm not here to convince you. I'm happy to educate you. But at the end of the day, you just have to make your own educated decision. Do I think you're an idiot for not taking it? I might, but I will reserve that judgment. So creatine is I will say this from the outset, creatine is one of the only supplements that actually works and does not only what it says it does, but a whole bunch of other cool stuff that is coming down the pipeline. And I forgot to show you. I have to show you. I'm wearing my Dr. Creatine shirt. Yep. Scott Forbes got that for me.
That's cool.
So creatine we make it in our bodies. We make it endogenously. And so if it truly was dangerous, I think we would have an issue. The thing about it, though, is that most of us don't make adequate creatine in our body for optimal performance. And so creatine is not a steroid. Let's just kind of put that one out there. It's not a steroid. It's simply 3 amino acids. And so let's go back to biochemistry for just a second. Amino acids are the building blocks of protein. So it's 3 amino acids that form creatine. We make it on our own bodies but we can supplement with it to get added benefit. It is not harmful for our kidneys. Now, this came about because many times when they're doing kidney function tests, I think there's other ways to test, but one of the ways they test is they look at your creatinine levels. And if a person has elevated creatinine, it can be an indicator of kidney damage. Well, creatine is broken down to creatinine non-enzymatically. So if the doctor doesn't know you're taking creatine, your creatinine levels may be elevated, and that could concern them. But they should, once you explain, I supplement with creatine, they should be happy with that. But they could also, if they're not happy with that, they could also look at a urine test to make sure that you're excreting creatinine. But creatine is not damaging to your kidneys. That said, I just heard Dr. Forbes talking about a case study where someone had taken an insane amount of creatine, 200 grams. They were supplementing with 200 grams. So most of the research is recommending 5 grams a day. This was 200 grams a day. Caused themselves some problems. So creatine is one of the most researched supplements. It's one of the safest supplements, and it does not cause kidney damage in the recommended dosages. But all of that said, if you have reservations and you don't want to take it, don't take it. But hopefully after today we talk about all the benefits, you might at least consider it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I found so interesting about this study that you did was the ancillary things. Like obviously, a simple Google search, we're going to use that term again, but it'll tell you that creatine basically works by pulling water into your muscles, right? So, I mean, that's kind of what's been long known, but there's so many other things that I read through your study, and I was like really interested in some of the other things. So how did, I guess you keep mentioning Dr. Scott Forbes, right?
Yes, Dr. Creatine.
Can we talk a little bit about who's involved in this study and like kind of why they're there, and then we'll talk about the other stuff that you found in that study.
Absolutely. So I already mentioned Dr. Drew Gonzalez. He's a recently, I almost said crowned, like he was some sort of king. He's a recently graduated PhD, and he's very interested in tactical athletes, specifically fire. And so Drew Gonzalez.
I'm taking.
He and I co-host the 7-Minute Science. Cool. If you've ever joined us for that, but Drew is very interested in bringing the best research to the fire service. And so, again, he called me up one day. I have a crazy idea. Again, once a week, I have a crazy idea. He said, "What do you think about a creatine review?" And I said, "Well, we need to call Forbes." Dr. Scott Forbes, and I think we need to get Andrew Jagum involved in this. And so Forbes and Gonzalez and I kind of spearheaded this whole project. And then we got some ancillary support. I shouldn't say ancillary, big, heavy lifting support from Dr. Jagum and his associate, Joel Ludke, and then some of the graduate students in Drew's lab. And then Dr. Allison Brager, who, again, you mentioned before, she contributed a lot with the creatine and sleep piece of it. And then Dr. Darren Kandow, who does an awful lot of creatine research. And then one of the kings of creatine, Rick Kreider. So he's at Texas A&M with Drew. And so that is a lot of authors, but there was a lot of information to go through in creatine. Because the traditional benefit of creatine that everyone thinks of is bigger, stronger muscles. And for a huge percentage of the population, it is very effective in getting bigger, stronger muscles. But some of the side effects is going to make it sound like it's bad. What I meant was some of the side impacts of creatine are bone health. So making the geometry of our bones more, words are so hard today. Am I sleep deprived? I need creatine. The geometry of our bones more beneficial. It is especially impactful with cognition under conditions of sleep deprivation. That sure sounds like firefighters to me. And then we're finding some benefits in concussion. So concussion, there's a lot of ways to look at it, but one of the things that's going on in the brain is a mismatch of energy needs and energy availability. And creatine is a molecule that can give us energy. And then some really interesting research with creatine impacts in anxiety and depression, specifically in females. So kind of all of these heavy hitters brought different perspectives to this paper, but I think that we covered all of the known benefits of creatine now. I have to be very specific. This is a review article, and none of this research has been done in firefighters. We would love to duplicate this within firefighters, but when we look at firefighters, they're basically just a subset of the general population. And so if these impacts are helping in athletes and the general population, we can only assume and infer that the benefits would happen in firefighters as well.
Absolutely, especially the sleep thing. I have to ask, why does it help depression and anxiety specifically in females more than like males?
So that's some emerging research. I think Abby Smith-Ryan did that research. She is just a powerhouse on the female research side. Abby has found that there's some changes in water retention across the menstrual cycle, I think in the luteal phase of the menstrual cycle in the muscle. And so could it be something with estrogen and the brain? And I don't actually know, but that would be, I guess, my best educated guess at this time.
That's such a
more research needed.
Yeah, more research needed. It's such a hard one to go after, though, because in researching or reading research, consuming research on anxiety and depression, especially anxiety, that word is not used properly or well understood. I mean, people, I think, feel stress and they call it anxiety. People have anxiety and they call it stress. Also, like the hormone dump that happens, or lack of a hormone dump that happens with anxiety, is also another problem where you don't have the right amount of serotonin in your bloodstream, and all of a sudden you have a huge problem, and like you have too much, you have a huge problem. So it's like, what's causing? Is it the chicken or the egg? So that I can see how that'd be tricky. I was wondering if there was something specific they maybe correlated it to, but yeah, tangent.
Not yet.
Cool. Well, with that, like the other stuff with firefighters, we have these potential benefits. Where do you see this coming? Like as far as the health and wellness stuff that's coming around with the fire service, we're becoming very educated on it. How do you see this impacting the fire service? Hopefully positively.
Well, let me say this. First of all, the military is considering putting creatine in the MREs. So creatine has kind of a spotlight on it right now. In terms of, let's just talk about some other potential benefits first, and then maybe we can circle back to the, how does it fit? Yeah. How does this fit into the fire service? So there's another study. Dr. Kreider did the study, and he did it in Division I football players. And they weren't assigned to a group. They were simply interviewed after the fact. Do you supplement with creatine or do you not supplement with creatine? But what they were looking at was core body temperature. I'm not signing up for that study. Core body temperature, sweat rate, and heart rate. And what they found was that the players that were supplementing with creatine had lower core body temperature, lower sweat rate, lower heart rate. And so it might follow to sort of hypothesize that firefighters who are taking creatine may experience these same impacts while doing structural firefighting. Now, I once had a person ask me a really, really good question, and I'm really glad he asked. He said, but isn't it a detriment if the firefighters aren't sweating, then they're not cooling off? Well, the thing is, though, their core temperature is lower, which is a benefit, and sweating in your structural firefighter gear, you're not cooling off anyway. You're just creating a steam bath. And so, that is another potential benefit that's sort of, I'll call it a fringe benefit. And then the other, I guess, the benefit of preserving cognition under conditions of sleep deprivation, you are taking these men and women and putting them behind a wheel of a $2+ million vehicle. I am certainly going to endorse better cognition for sure. And the same thing, when you show up at my house and my loved one is in arrest and you are dosing out medications, I want you to pick the correct one and the correct dosage. So in terms of, how it fits into the fire service, I think it needs to probably go into academy education. And, I think the answer to everything in the fire service is academy education, because we're training the new people coming up with the new information. It's much harder to take that information to the men and women that have been on the line for 20 years. But I think including this information in the academy is great. There's this misnomer that creatine dehydrates you, but then also people say, on the other hand, like, I don't want to take creatine because it makes me retain water. Well, which is it? Which is it? You do absolutely want to be taking in adequate water for many reasons while you're a firefighter. And, creatine works by driving water into the cell. So yes, we want to have adequate water, but there's no evidence that creatine dehydrates you. And so, back to your original question, I think it starts in the academy and that educational process.
One of my questions was that myth or misconception of creatine with dehydration. How much water should we? But I mean, it still leads to this next question: how much water should we be consuming as firefighters? Does taking creatine still change the amount of water we should be consuming? Or are we still going to get some of these benefits without increased water consumption? Because if you ask Megan Louts, we're not drinking enough water. And she's like, always.
She gets up on her soapbox too.
Yeah, and I share her stuff. I love her stuff. But
she's amazing. I love Megan.
There's got to be a little bit of water increase to get the muscular benefits, but are we still getting all that other stuff without increased water consumption or what?
I would look at those two things as two separate problems.
Cool. And
so we need to be adequately hydrating, and Megan has a matrix, and she also has a rehydration matrix, which is great. She shares that. The ISSN position stand on tactical athlete fueling actually has suggestions on how much water you should be drinking, then based on, okay, are we adding a workout? Are we adding a structure fire? And I would love to quote that off the top of my head, but my hard drive, since I started grad school, this one is so full, I can't remember anything but my name. But that has very particular suggestions for adequate hydration. Adequate hydration is adequate for creatine supplementation. Like, we don't need to, I need to drink 32 more ounces of water because I'm taking creatine. We want to adequately hydrate, and then none of it should be an issue. If you are not adequately hydrating, I cannot point to a study that says it's going to be 50% less effective or 100% less effective. I can't point to any of that stuff. But because it works by driving water into the muscle cell, we obviously want to have adequate hydration. And then the other thing that I need to mention is that creatine is not liquid stable. And so the particular brand of energy drink that used to have creatine in it, can I say bullshit on your podcast?
Oh, I curse all the time. Yeah,
okay, it's bullshit.
Everyone's marked as expletive. Yeah.
Okay.
The super
it's
creatine,
bullshit.
Right? Super creatine?
Yeah.
Is that what they call
okay,
it?
But it was non-detectable in the drink, because even if they were putting it in, it breaks down in liquid. And so you don't want to make yourself like you don't want to do lemonade. You know how you make lemonade and put it in the fridge. You don't want to make yourself a gallon of creatine and put it in the fridge so I remember to drink it. It's not liquid stable. And then the other thing that people always say is like, oh, it's so gritty. Like I just can't get it to go into solution. There's creatine. It's micronized creatine, so it's more powdery and less granular. That is also helpful. But I found that it doesn't matter what type of creatine monohydrate. If I put it in my protein shake, I don't notice it because it goes down with the rest of the sludge.
So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have it completely dissolved to get it. I mean, as long as you're consuming it, because it's going to get dissolved in gastric contents and do its thing.
Yes.
Either, right? So the micronized
my
thing
aggressive
is really,
stomach.
Yeah. The micronized thing is really just for personal preference. So it's not as gritty.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it does go into solution much easier. There's also capsules. They're much more expensive. There's also gummies. I actually like the gummies because I can put them in a baggie and then, have them available without having to scoop. Oh, I have another creatine tip. Would you like to hear it?
Yes, all of them.
I'm all over the place. So creatine, it doesn't matter on timing. So as long as you are taking it, it doesn't matter on timing, but it is a little bit better absorbed if you take it with carbohydrates or with protein. And so when I get my new tub or bag or box of protein, I just look and see how many servings are on there. And then I measure out the appropriate amount of creatine and I shake it really, really, really well. And then I always shake it before I use it and then scoop it that way. So a little bit more than a protein size scoop, and I'm just assuming I'm getting my creatine that way. So it takes a step away. I like the gummies. They're just very expensive. And that said, no one's done the research yet on the gummies to say, are they as effective as regular creatine? Spoiler alert, I'm pretty sure that they are, but no one's done the research.
Right. Yeah. If it's the only time I think, and this is just my own stuff with CBD, the only time I think gummies aren't as effective is if the bioavailability changes. But from what I read, creatine is basically 100% bioavailable. So that means whatever you take, you're actually going to use.
Yeah, it's Dr. Eric Trexler made the best statement. It's been so long ago now, but he said, creatine monohydrate's the gold standard. That's basically what all the research has done. Everything else does the same thing, probably, and it's just way more expensive. So there's creatine HCl, there's buffered creatine, there's like all these women's creatine. I just listened to a podcast where they were talking about a special creatine to build your butt, and it came in like this butt shaped, right? Okay.
That's crazy.
But it all hopefully does the same thing, and you're just paying more. So creatine monohydrate is relatively inexpensive. It's, as long as you get it from a third party tested lab, it's pure, and you don't need the special pink creatine or the whatever bicep creatine. Creatine monohydrate.
I like it.
End of story.
The other thing I thought was super interesting was the antioxidative properties.
Yeah.
I have really come to appreciate anti-inflammatory and antioxidative anything.
Yeah.
Learning about what chronic sleep deprivation does to the immune system and oxidation. So this is like another silent killer for us. And I want to just say, hey, we can just eat enough blueberries for our antioxidants and we're all going to be kosher. But unfortunately, I think we live a very unhealthy lifestyle with the fire service just by nature of it. And is this like how, on a scale, how powerful are these antioxidative effects?
Oof. That is one of the things about creatine that I cannot speak on very elegantly. I can say this. Food first is always a great approach. So yes, keep up with those blueberries and strawberries and other fruits and veggies. Megan would also approve of that. Keep up with that. I think that adding the creatine, it's as kind of a scavenger for those reactive oxidative species, if you will, can only be helpful. But I would say if I have a choice between having someone eat well, food first, or pick supplements, always food first. always sleep first, always exercise first. Creatine isn't going to do you much good, if any, if you're not getting those big, huge check marks checked off in your life.
Yeah. Like the perfect advice, I think. I try to say the same thing, and I do believe that, it doesn't really. The reason I always ask is because I think firefighters, especially, but I'm sure a lot of people are just looking for the shortcut. They want the magic bullet.
Yes.
And that's a really dangerous way to live, because you can't just, say, I want to lose weight. I'm going to keep eating cheeseburgers. To keep taking GLP-1s, I'm supposed to say. I have to clip that. I can't say the name of the drug. The magnifying glass on CBD companies is super weird, by the way. We won't even have to talk about it.
Interesting.
But yeah. I can't mention stuff like that. They will get very angry. Instagram and YouTube.
Well, and here's the thing. Again, your body makes creatine. It doesn't probably make the optimal amount of creatine, but you could eat food and get the 5 grams of creatine per day. And we should probably talk about dosage in a second. But in order to eat enough food to get the 5 grams of creatine, I believe it's like 6 pounds of cod, a couple pounds of flank steak, couple gallons of milk. Not all of those things, but like one of those things, 6 pounds of cod. No thanks. I'll take the creatine.
Then that brings up my question, like, perfectly, because why is there an optimal amount now? And, like, if we're looking at human evolution over time, and we make this stuff naturally, if it's endogenous, what happened? Or are we just saying that this is optimal for finding some of these ancillary benefits, like brain health and performance and stuff?
Yeah. So the bigger, stronger muscle properties, most of that research has been done on 5 grams per day. Doesn't matter if you're male, female, big, small, 5 grams per day. And what they found is that most people, after about 30 days, I think it is, will be fully saturated in their muscles with 5 grams per day. The research on bone health, brain health, those other sort of bonus benefits, many of them were done at a higher dosage, 0.1 grams per kilogram. So for me, that's the difference between 5 and I think 7.5 grams per day. So I personally am doing a bit higher dosage, which always then brings up the question, like, yeah, but I heard you're supposed to load it. If you're looking for the benefits in a quicker fashion, and firefighters don't like to wait for things, probably that 20 grams per day loading phase of a week is going to start to give them those benefits quicker. But also, your chances of GI distress is probably a bit higher with that. And what firefighter do you know that is going to remember to take 4 dosages of something for an entire week? Zero firefighters. And so I would say just the 5 grams a day for most people, good enough. Like, do I have to take it on vacation? Oh my gosh, I don't want to take my creatine on vacation. Don't. The washout period, if you're doing research on creatine subjects, usually they require you to be off of it for 6 weeks, which is why I never want to be the subjects in creatine research, because I don't want to wash out. Yeah. So, skipping a few days or a week on your vacation, it's okay. The interesting research with the sleep deprivation and preserving the cognitive function, that was actually an acute dose of creatine of 20 grams. So the research there's a lot of research on continuous dosage. There's less research on that acute dosing, but it's all super interesting. And none of the research is saying, oh my God, don't do it.
Yeah. It is interesting. One of the things I would always question or be curious about is if it's made endogenously, typically, like, I guess it's more with hormones. So forgive me.
I know what you're going to ask. Yeah.
If you're making it naturally and you take it as a supplement, is it going to stop getting produced as much?
Yeah, it looks like to some extent that does happen. But then once you stop taking it, then your body goes happily upon making it again. So I think those hormonal processes are so much more tightly, should I say, coupled together. I have seen no research that says you can shut off your endogenous production of creatine.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think some of the questions would probably just be about safety. Like if it's, or most of the questions for people that don't know would be, same thing.
Yeah.
Like between the hydration, long-term use, understanding that what it does. I think from what I've read and what you've talked about, really your big thing is GI distress. Like if you take too much of it at once. But I do think
Yeah.
that a lot of the education coming out would probably help that. And uh, the academy instruction, from whenever I ask about this stuff, when we talk about mental health or when we talk about nutrition or anything, a lot of it comes down to the academy stuff. I definitely see a trend for us to start taking more time to have a wellness component in the academy. I know you do a lot of consulting, and is that something that happens in the academy, or do you go back? Because I've always heard the term, and I've said this probably more times than I've heard it. You can teach firefighters anything, but you can't reteach them. And it's like that re-education, if you will, is really tough. Do you? I think though with this one, it's with supplementation. I find that they're more open to it. Because
Oh,
they
yeah.
almost see it as like a quick fix in their head before you're telling them this is not a quick fix. In their head, they're like, I'm going to take this. This is a quick fix. So have you seen
Yes.
it? Which way do you do it more of, and what do you find is effective?
Well, with creatine and sleep and all of the things I talk about, I do both. I try to get it into the academies, and then I also try to educate the um, mature, or shall we call it, the mature firefighters. And the interesting, I think I already told you there aren't any cheat codes, but to some extent, I do have the cheat code because they tend to listen to me a little bit more than they would listen to, say, a professional off the street. I have this wonderful, and I will weaponize it, built-in credibility. Oh, you were on the job? Oh, you understand. That's not to say someone off the street can't understand, but firefighters don't think that they can possibly understand.
Yeah.
So what I try to do is take a not a non-adversarial approach to it. Like I told you at the beginning, I'm not here to convince you to take creatine, but here are the reasons that you may want to consider it. Ball is now in your court. And that seems to work very well with firefighters. But I do hear something, you said it earlier. My high school coach told me, my mom told me, my brother in law told me. And so sometimes we have to educate through those barriers, and sometimes we get through and sometimes we don't. But I'm just here to tell you the facts. What you do with those facts, it's up to you.
Yeah. Do you see this like study getting presented maybe at a national level, or are you guys putting it out? I mean, I know so fire engineering has that offshoot now. It's called Firefighter Nation. They're doing health and wellness stuff. It just launched literally 10 days ago.
Is that
That'd
the
be
one with Stephanie White? Is that
Stephanie
her
White.
name?
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's the editor for that, and they're looking for stuff. I mean, stuff like that would be good, but um, there's a lot of really big names on this study that I think bring a shit ton of credibility. You guys be able to show people this stuff.
Yeah, it's really interesting. In most of my talks, whether it's a nutrition talk, a sleep talk, or a physical fitness talk, I tend to weave creatine into the study or into the talk somehow. And without fail, when I ask for questions at the end, they immediately come with the questions about creatine. Or if they don't ask questions, I then say, so who wants to talk more about creatine? And all the hands go
Yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I think this is going to be something that for me, I will probably package this up as a presentation somewhere. I just
Cool,
don't know where yet.
cool. Yeah, yeah. See if you could apply at FDIC. I think the 2025 is closed, but yeah,
Yeah.
for the next ones. But I would love to see this kind of get brought to the forefront a little bit more. The idea that we have this really open mind right now to nutrition, to wellness. The newer generation is very, very forward thinking with that kind of stuff. I think that's one thing I'm optimistic about, and also that we can have it as a holistic approach where it's like sleep, nutrition, proper supplementation, and understand that not one thing equals success with it. It's a complete total picture. Uh, people are constantly hungry for this information. In the younger generations, it's actually kind of cool when I'm at FDIC and I'm around these people and I'm talking about my stuff. It's really interesting. I figured a lot of resistance would be from older generations, right? The 65-year-old fire chief does not want to talk to me, and I was dead wrong. I was dead wrong, and
Really?
it was surprising because they were like, "I wish I could talk to my younger self and say, take care of yourself a little bit better, because the job, when you're 20, you're 25 years old, then you're 30, then you're 35, you're like still not realizing this stuff compounds out how you take care of yourself, or lack of taking care of yourself." And then these younger guys are thinking, I really, really want to take care of myself. And there's this weird middle ground that I found that's really hard to get to. And the middle ground is people that think taking care of yourself means you're complaining about the job and you can't hack it. And it drives me fucking nuts. It drives me nuts because I get this constant like criticism from people where if I talk about, hey, let's try to get good sleep because it's unnatural to run 5 calls after midnight, they're like, well, if you can't hack it, quit. I'm like, you are missing the message here. Okay.
Not what
And I still like working at, right now I'm in admin. I'm one of those guys, but I will be back on shift in a few months. I spent 2 years up there and I love running calls. I like being busy, but I know if I take care of myself, at the end of my career, I'll still be able to run calls versus being forced to go somewhere where I don't want to go because I physically can't hack it anymore. So I'm like, you are actually going to shoot yourself in the foot with this. That's a really difficult message for me.
And I think because of the personality that we have, I just have to be really clear with this. Creatine is not going to solve all your problems. It can help soften and mitigate the impact of the job. But the bigger piece of it is adequate sleep, nutrition, exercise your body, do some mobility, do something for your brain, drink some water. Like that's the bigger piece of it. And this is kind of like the sprinkles on top of the cupcake.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, the other cool thing is like you have the cool factor of creatine. Like, it's going to help me get jacked. So they're like already they're like, oh yeah, I'm in. It's like steroids, but it's not. And so there's like that tough factor to it where you don't have to say like, hey, this is going to help you with anxiety and depression, and they're like, oh, I don't want to hear about that. I just want to get jacked. So you kind of, I don't know, you catch it's a wide net. Like you can cast a very wide net. I think it's really good. So what's next then? How do you? I know that. What are you excited about right now? I know your PhD stuff is probably really, really taking up all your time.
I'm excited about several things. Can I be excited about more than one thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I'm really excited about 7-Minute Science. We haven't totally decided. It has been every 2 months, and our what would you call that? Not listenership. Our watches live have declined a lot. Drew's looking at the metrics of who's rewatching it. We're trying to figure out if it needs to be less often. But 7-Minute Science is fantastic because I have the best friends in the world who come and talk about their cool shit. Cool. And then they tell the fire service what to do with it. That's the most important thing. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about getting my research off the ground. It's starting with a survey. It's not ready yet, but I would love everyone to fill out my survey. And then I'm really excited about an event I'm having in May. Can I talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we're having a women's tactical summit. It's only one day. I saw that, right? It's at, I know, I'm so excited. Cool. Yep. It's at OSU OKC campus. Dr. Brager already has committed a talk. Megan Lautz, the rescue RD. Dr. Jill Joyce is going to talk about manipulating your environment. I'm hoping to get Anna Craig from Texas. She talks about female physiology. I'm forgetting some people, but women and men welcome, but it is going to be about the female tactical operator. May 9th. So excited.
Would this be good for fire chiefs to go to, like, heads of organization, to try to implement some of these things for women?
I think so. I was recently at Women in Fire, and there were actually a ton of, I shouldn't say a ton, there were a good amount of men there. And I was so surprised at how engaged they were. And they asked really good questions. They weren't there just as placeholders.
Yeah.
So I kind of think, yeah. But the other thing I'm going to encourage you, Fort Sill already committed to taking 60 of my 150 seats. Incredible. So I would just say once registration opens in December, if you're thinking about coming, you would definitely want to get registered, because I think it's going to sell out. Yeah, I think it's going to sell out.
Yeah, the education on maternity leave, which I hate that even has to be education. Like, why is that a thing? We don't have our department, zero, no maternity leave whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. That's very typical.
Right. And I'm like, so they're stuff like that. And then the reproductive health stuff, like dangers of miscarriages, and stuff that really is not talked about or well understood, I think is really good for chiefs to go see. But as far as like the tactical end of it and, the end user, I think that's really cool. We are, like we talked about, I saw that come out and I was like, hey, I will help with this. I'd love to donate stuff or whatever you guys want.
Yeah, we were really excited about that.
Yeah, my inspiration for the fire service is my mom. She's a captain on the Palm Beach County Fire Department, so she got me into this. Yeah, and she's going to be retiring soon, but she got hired in 2001, so she's like kind of in that middle ground. She's like, I want to stay. I can stay for a while, but I also kind of want to go. Kids have all moved out. Grandkids are just,
I'm doing the math. How old was your mom when she started?
Well, she had me very young. She had me when she was like 19, so she's young.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
My mom is 50. Mom, don't be mad at me.
Mom, it's okay.
She's 53. Almost 53.
Oh my God, your mom is my age.
Yeah, she's about to retire. Yeah. So she's born.
She's gonna love it.
Yeah. So she had a really cool idea a few years ago to get this like giant RV, and she
thought about that
because she has 3 dogs, and she takes them everywhere. So like they're kind of like testing the waters now. They drove out to like Yellowstone. They brought the dogs. They're out running around in rivers and shit, and they're just like, all right, I'm gonna miss it, but I'm gonna be okay. Because her husband, my stepdad, is also a firefighter for Palm Beach County Fire Department. So like, they're both retiring at the same time. Kids are all moved out. House has been like, yeah, they're gonna live the dream. They have the boat and the RV, and that's what they want to do. So, and she worked at some of the busiest engine companies in America, like in Palm Beach County. Like, she was really, really busy. And so there's, I'm sure just over time too, she's like, yeah, I've paid my dues. I'm done.
Right.
She's like, I don't want to do it. But yeah, it's pretty cool. That whole side of the fire service where we're trying to understand the female component, I think is gonna, I think it's gonna be really helpful. We're gonna have, even still, we have hiring shortages, and I think a lot of women are intimidated or scared to get into the fire service. And
absolutely.
Yeah, part of it is like nothing's set up for me either. So aside from
including the gear,
yeah, the gear thing, right? Like fitting. I see
shit
LA,
doesn't fit.
Yeah, I see LA is trying to do it. We actually, I'm proud of my department. We've taken a lot of steps to do a little more customization with fitting and stuff, and they like make it a little more tailored, even for men too. But that's a big change. And then trying to understand the health and wellness of it. But stuff like the research you're doing is so important, and trying to make big impacts for this is like generational. It really is. And that's the other cool thing, is your name's on this forever, so this is a legacy. It's really, really awesome. I think that a lot of people will get great use out of it, and I hope it generates a shit ton of questions. I hope people get really curious. I hope people try to understand where it's going to go. And yeah, thank you for doing it.
Yeah. Well, and if they have any questions, probably the best place to ask them would be on messaging me on Instagram. That's probably the easiest way.
Sweet. Yeah. Yeah, and you're at Fire Rescue Wellness, right?
Yep, all
And
one word.
um, Fire Rescue Wellness is also your podcast,
Oh, it is.
and your website too, with consulting and a ton of really good information on there. Also, that's where the 7 Minute Science is, but I'm going to put the link for that in there. And the next one's coming up in like a couple of weeks, right? Or a week or two.
Yes. Oh, it's going to be exciting. It's the 28th of October.
28th, yeah.
Everything, all the other ones have been primarily scientists. These are going to be practitioners who are using evidence-based practices. So Megan Lautz, Vanessa Frost from Pflugerville Fire, and third one TBD. It actually might be me, but should be a really, really good one.
I love it. So that's the best place to reach you. If people have questions, Instagram, is that fair to say? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
but you can put my email in the show notes, but Instagram's usually quicker.
I love it. How's the podcast going?
It's great. It became a little bit more stressful after I moved because I don't have like my nice little closet that's sound controlled. Graduate school, although JDOS has assured me graduate school is not an emergency because nothing's on fire and no one's not breathing, graduate school feels like an emergency.
Yes.
And so just getting things scheduled is harder. But yeah, it's amazing.
Awesome. I have one last question, and I try to ask this for people just in general, but since you are recently retired, congratulations, by the way.
Thanks.
Looking back on your career, what do you wish you did differently, or what advice would you give to your probationary firefighter self?
This is not female specific, but it might feel female specific. You have to advocate for yourself. You have to ask for what you need. Because I asked for, I need nitrile gloves that fit me. We can't order small gloves. You're the only one here. Like, I need t-shirts that fit me. We can't order small. And so I just shut up about it because I didn't want to be a pain. And so, things such as I need access to a bathroom and a changing room. When I was told, I'm sorry, we can't do that, I just let it go. And those things are like, you need those tools to do your job safely. And so my advice is ask for what you need. And when you're told no, you have to keep asking and advocating for yourself. Don't be small and go away, because I had actually an occupational cancer that could be explained potentially by the fact that my first almost 5 years, I didn't have access to like immediately being able to shower, change clothes off of after a fire, et cetera, et cetera. So you just have to ask for what you need and be a pain in the ass about it.
I love it. That's great advice.
Yeah.
Another thing that needs to be talked to recruits about, like in the academy, is got to be your own advocate as well.
Yeah.
And for people that have been on the job for a while and that are in leadership positions, that's not a kinder, gentler fire service kind of thing, where people are like, they think it's a sign of weakness. They're like, oh, these guys and girls can't hack it. They're constantly, complaining and asking for stuff. Like, you can advocate for yourself and still be really tough. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. I think that has to be a little more understood as well from leadership.
And if we're looking, I know that some places you can't say these words and some places it's okay. So if we're looking at diversity in the fire service and inclusion, part of those problems can be solved by just taking a look at it. Like, how would you feel if you had to ask for something that everyone else automatically has and then you were told no?
Right.
I think that solves a lot of those problems.
Yeah. This is, while we're wrapping up, this is like, I think it's so important to touch on. There shouldn't be a separate initiative or push that we have to go around and try to even address diversity, equity, and inclusion. That should just be built into what we do. I mean, the fire service, since its inception, especially in the U.S., has always been open to bringing in everyone. That's why we have bagpipes in the fire service, was because, the Irish in the 1800s just couldn't get a job anywhere else. And that's like, one of the safe places. This has always been that way. And it shouldn't be looked at like that. It should just be looked at like, what do your people need? Do what you need to do to take care of them. We have a guy that works for us. He wears 4XL gloves, right? XXXXL. And he's the only dude in the whole place that wears that size gloves. We buy them because he
Yeah.
needs them. It's just like, if
Right.
it shouldn't even be a male or female thing. If females need small gloves, buy them the damn gloves. If they need a separate bathroom, get them the damn bathroom. It doesn't matter. It's like just investing in the people. It should never be determined by that. And it became that way, unfortunately, because we used to be a lot more closed-minded than we are now. But I think the fire service I see coming up, I'm very proud of, and I think that I'm super optimistic about it. I know we have our issues, leadership and stuff, but the ground level, I think, is they're going to take the charge, I think, pretty well, in my opinion.
I had the like distinct honor to meet and then have dinner with Deputy Chief Lori Vandeshoot. She's from Canada, yay, somewhere, don't know where, Ontario. But she talked about what they did at their department. I think it's fantastic. They gave she didn't call them Class A's. They have a different word for it. They're fancy uniforms. Mm-hmm. They have long coats, short coats, like double-breasted, single, like just all of the styles. Long skirts, short skirts, skinnier fit pants, wide leg pants, whatever, all of the styles. And you as the person can go pick out whatever you want to be your like dressy department uniform. And if that means you're a female and you get the like wide leg trousers, more power to you. You get the skirt, more power to you. If you're a dude, you chose a skirt, it's your uniform. You don't have to fight for what you want. So I thought that was amazing. Just make it be freaking nice to everybody.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like the choice. I think also too, people see that you invest in them. They give yes. leadership a lot of leeway. The conversation that doesn't happen, I wish would happen more, would be from personnel to say, I disagree, but I understand you.
Yes.
That doesn't happen. They're like, I disagree and go fuck yourself. Like, that's basically what it comes down to is, you guys don't get it and I disagree and you suck. And I wish it would be like, hey, chief, I don't agree with that at all, but I totally understand why you're doing it. So, and that only comes from building up a lot of goodwill and respect and stuff like just investing in people's the foundation of what people's like basic needs. I think it's just low hanging fruit. It's so easy, and it's usually a low cost or no cost item. And that's kind of what we wanted to put forward with the podcast and like just to like highlight everything you're doing. It is important that when this stuff comes out, people take action on it. That if my fire chief came to me and said, hey, did you see this study? I think we need to look at how we can bring this forward in the department and highlight it and tell people about it. He's saying, I care about you guys. I want you guys and girls to do good. I want you to take care of yourselves. And this is like actual stuff. I don't want this study to come out and then people just sit on their hands and do absolutely nothing with it. So let's make it known, If
I was still in the fire service, we had a station fund where you were required to throw in a certain amount of money each year, and it bought things like butter and dressing and things. Okay. And some of the stations, not at my department, but at different departments, one of the things that they supply out of that is Metamucil, and it just sits on the counter. I would say creatine might be a better thing to buy with your station fund than Metamucil. Eat your vegetables, buy some creatine.
Holy shit. Yeah. That's
holy shit, literally.
Yeah. You're like, what? I see that too. Like, hey, did you guys get Pepto? I'm like, can we talk about why everybody needs omeprazole and Pepto and like all this stuff before we like, damn, man, that's good. That's good stuff. Yeah. Metamucil. I love it. Cool. Well, AZ, thank you so much for being on
of course.
here. I really hope people got a lot out of this, and I hope the questions come up. I'm going to put all this stuff in the show notes, including the Fire Rescue Wellness podcast on the website and your 7-minute science coming up. And please share those around too, guys. Like when you hear this stuff, I know everybody listening to this is very invested in their own health and wellness, and that you work with people that also may be like-minded. So if you could share the links for the 7-Minute Wellness and check out the conference coming up in Oklahoma. The name of that again?
Women's Tactical Summit.
Yeah, Women's Tactical Summit. It's going to be really cool. It sounds like it's going to sell out kind of fast, so you might want to keep your eye out on it, and then just follow AZ on Instagram at Fire Rescue Wellness so you can pay attention to all this stuff and keep your eye out. So again, thank you so much. I'm going to have this out soon, and I'm sure everybody's going to love it.
Thank you for having me, and it was great to finally see your face, virtually at least.
Absolutely. Likewise. Take care.